Hello? How am I coming in? Can you hear me? Hello, KJ? Hello, Robert. Am I being seen and heard well? No problems? All right. Hello, Douse. Douse, even though you said it's going to be 2 a.m., you're still here, at least for a little bit. Sleep is good. Hello, John and Audrey. Oh, I didn't know Audrey was Butterscotch Fox. Okay. Very good. Hello, Millionaire. Hey, Jessica. Good to see you. All right. So let's get started with the chanting. So we are going to do a fun one today. Kandaparita on page 57. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Virupakehi me mettang mettang erapatehi me. Chabhaya puttehi me mettang mettang kanno gatamake cha. Apadakehi me mettang mettang dvipadakehi me. Chatubadehi me mettang mettang bahupadehi me. Mamang apadako hingsi mamang hingsi dvipadako. Mamang chatupado hingsi mamang hingsi bahupado. Sabbe satta sabbe pana sabbe butta chakevala. Sabbe bhadrani passantu makanchi papang agama. Appamano buddho appamano dhammo appamano sango. Pamanavantani siring sapani amhi vichika sattapadi unanabhi sarubu musika kattache me rakka katte me parita parikamantu bhutani sohang namo bhagavato namo sattanang sammasambuddhang. English. For me, there is metta. There is metta for me, from me, for the Virupakas. For the Erapatas, there is metta for me. There is metta from me for the Chabyaputtas. For the Kanha Gotamakas, there is metta for me. From me, there is metta for those with no feet. For those with 2 feet, there is metta for me. For me, there is metta for those with 4 feet. For those with many feet, there is metta for me. May those with no feet not hurt me. May those with 2 feet not hurt me. May those with 4 feet not hurt me. May those with many feet not hurt me. May all beings, all those with life, all who have become, all in their entirety, may all see what is good. May suffering not come to anyone. Infinite is the Buddha. Infinite is the Dhamma. Infinite is the Sangha. Finite are creeping things. Snakes, scorpions, centipedes, spiders, lizards, and rats. I have made the protection. I have made the safeguard. May the harmful beings depart. I pay homage to the Sublime One. I pay homage to the 7 Buddhas. All right. Let's see. Hello, Adriana. Oh, sister. So, hello, Elaine. So, what we just chanted is one of the few times that you actually see a parita that is given by the Buddha. So, like a chant of blessing. Chant of blessing is something that's become very, very popular. There's lots of them in the Buddhist world. But in the early text, there's not too much. And this is one of them. This comes from a sutta called By a Snake. And what happens is it starts out with a monk has died from getting bit by a snake. And they go and tell the Buddha, and they said, and Buddha says, well, if he had practiced metta for the 4 great kings of snakes, the 4 major types of dangerous snakes, then he would not have died. Right? And so then the Buddha teaches them this, to have metta for the snakes. May I have metta for these beings. May now these beings also have metta for me. May they not kill me. Right? And so the Buddha says, okay, now you've made the protection. Infinite is the triple gem. Finite are creeping things. Don't worry about them. Practice lots of metta and you'll be fine. Right? Oh, did I say? Yeah, Bante P. Very good. Hey, Bante. Oh, we have the fourfold assembly here, which is good. Robert says, I love Pali chanting, but I can never seem to get my tongue around the pronunciation and rhythm combined. It takes a long time. Do you know how long? I mean, I still kind of botched this one up a little bit on some of these big, long names, but compared to when I used to chant this like 4 years ago, it was a nightmare 4 years ago. But you just practice. So, friends, welcome to Dhammapalooza. If there's anybody new here in the chat, I'll explain a little bit about what we do here. Every Monday night, 8 p.m. Yeah, Dallas, he died because he didn't have enough metta. If you spend time in the woods, the metta thing actually feels like it works, especially if you practice a lot of it. But anyway, so friends, for what we do here every Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. is we have a festival of Dhamma, which means there's a variety of things we do. So we did some chanting. We're going to do some guided meditation later. And maybe we'll do some readings. I'd like to, if possible, do some readings from the Samyutta Nikaya about dependent origination, right? Make everybody really confused. But what I like to do, especially in the beginning, is give the floor to the community, right? This is a community event. I'd like, people can chat with each other in the chat, talk about things. And, I mean, obviously don't go way off the rails. Try to stick at least somewhat close to what we're doing here on Dhammapalooza. But you can feel free to chat with each other, communicate, discuss. If you have any questions you'd like me to ask, you can type those in the chat now. If you have any topics you'd like me to discuss, you can do that now. I'd like to let you guys have a say in how we kind of, how this Dhammapalooza goes. If you've been to Dhammapaloozas enough, you know that each time it's different. Right? We don't know what. Sometimes it's a lot of reading, like two Dhammapaloozas ago. Not that many questions, lots of reading. I think last Dhammapalooza was more questions, a little bit of reading. So each time is a little bit different, and it depends a lot on you guys. Well, Adriana, when one of the suttas that we're going to read is one of the first times The first time I ever saw the Buddha say invalid question. This in the Samyutta Nikaya, and that's one of these. So, oh, Sierra, KJ's really loving dependent origination. Bante, I think only I can post links. Only the host. Yeah, Adriana really loves dependent origination. especially when in the what is it called, the Mahanidana, I think it is Mahanidana, the great discourse on causation in Digha Nikaya, where Ananda goes, this dependent origination, I think I understand this. And the Buddha says, do not say so, Ananda. I was thinking about maybe we might do that next Dhammapalooza, maybe. It's a big one. I don't think we would really get it all in one Dhammapalooza because it's from the Digha Nikaya. But do not say so, Ananda. This dependent origination is deep, and it appears deep. All right, I don't see any comments or questions, so let's do some dependent origination. Let me just find. I have a couple of them. Samyutta Nikaya, the sutras are not long, so I have maybe 3 or 4. And I wanted to see which one I wanted to start first. All right. Let's start with this one first. Hello, Gleam Tech. Welcome. All right. Conditions. At Savati, ignorance is a condition for choices. Sankara. Choices are a condition for consciousness. That is how ... That is how this entire massive suffering originates, right? So this is ellipsed because a couple of sutras before that, Buddha went very detailed into this, but it says, okay, so and what is old age and death? Old age, decrepitude, broken teeth, gray hair, wrinkly skin, diminished vitals, and failing faculties of the various sentient beings in the various order of beings. This is called old age. The passing away, perishing, disintegration, demise, mortality, death, decease, breaking up of the aggregates and laying to rest the corpse of the various sentient beings and the various ordinary beings. This is called death. Such is old age, such is death. This is called old age and death. Rebirth is the origin of old age and death, right? When there's birth, old age and death. When rebirth ceases, old age and death cease. right? So this is the dependent origination in 2 lines, right? This is real dependent origination, right? When this arises, this arises. When this ceases, this ceases. So when birth arises, aging and death arise. When birth ceases, aging and death cease. The practice that leads to the cessation of old age and death is simply this Noble Eightfold Path. This right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion. And what is rebirth? What is continued existence? What is grasping, craving, feeling, contact, the 6 sense fields? And what are name and form? What is consciousness? What are choices? There are 3 kinds of choices. Choices by way of body, speech, and mind. These are called choices. Ignorance is the origin of choices. When ignorance ceases, choices cease. When the practice that leads to the cessation of choices is simply this Noble Eightfold Path. That is, right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion. A noble disciple understands conditions, their origin, their cessation, and the practice leading to their cessation. That's the Four Noble Truth framework, right? Understanding conditions. Such a noble disciple is called one accomplished in view, one accomplished in vision, one who has come to the true teaching, one who sees this true teaching, one endowed with trainees' knowledge, one who has entered the stream of teaching, a noble one with penetrative wisdom, one who stands pushing open the doors of the deathless. Just checking the chat. All right. Everybody's saying hello to each other. Very good. Nice to see. Now, what about volition? We'll do this one. If you are really interested in the Samyutta, in the dependent origination, there is literally a whole chapter, a whole section, a whole Samyutta. That's all dependent origination. Hundreds of little suttas. Right? Nice and easy. Well, not that easy. But that is the most detailed you're ever going to get in terms of explaining dependent origination in a variety of ways. So, volition. At Savati, bhikkhus, what one intends and what one plans, and whatever one has a tendency towards, this becomes a basis for the maintenance of consciousness. When there is a basis, there is a support for the establishing of consciousness. When consciousness is established and has come to growth, there is the production of future renewed existence. When there is production of future renewed existence, future birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair come to be. Such is the origin of the whole mass of suffering. If bhikkhus, one does not intend and one does not plan, but one still has a tendency towards something, this becomes the basis for the maintenance of consciousness. When there is a basis, there is a support for establishing consciousness, such and such as we just went over. But bhikkhus, when one does not intend and one does not plan and one does not have a tendency towards anything, no basis exists for the maintenance of consciousness. When there is no basis, there is no support for the establishing of consciousness. When consciousness is unestablished and does not come to growth, there is no production of future renewed existence. When there is no production of future renewed existence, future birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, despair, and displeasure cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. right? Intending, planning. I intend to live 1,000 more lifetimes because there's so many good things to experience still. Oh, don't worry, you will. Well, I think this is Bhante. What I mean, it's basically saying sankharas leads to consciousness, right? I mean, it's basically saying ignorance, sankharas, consciousness. This is a basis for the arising of consciousness. The Pali word is sankhara, but different. We've seen it. I think I read both a Bhikkhu Bodhi and a Bhante Sujato translation. You see it as choices. You see it as volitional formations. All right. Next one. There's so many gems in the Samyutta Nikaya. And I tried to choose some ones that are a bit. I mean, most people have seen the basic Satipatthana formations. I'm trying to choose ones that are a little bit thought provoking, a little bit different. Right? So, not yours. At Savati, bhikkhus, this body is not yours, nor does it belong to others. It is old kama, to be seen as generated and fashioned by volition, sankhara, as something to be felt. Therein, bhikkhus, the instructed noble disciple attends carefully and closely to dependent origination itself. Thus, when this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. With the cessation of this, that ceases. That is, with ignorance as a condition, volitional formations come to be. With volitional formations as condition, consciousness, ... such is the origin of the whole mass of suffering. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance comes the cessation of volitional formations. With the cessation of volitional formations, the cessation of consciousness. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. This body, Gleam Tech's really liking this body is old kama. Yeah, that is. Well, it's because it is. When you're born, it's because of your kama. Old kama. When, how, why, how you have this body, all that stuff. All right, Douse. Let's see. When desire to grab the cookie appears, or being compelled to grab the cookie, how is it with intentions there? Because often I don't want the cookie, but I might end up grabbing it regardless. I would say my intentions are to have the cookie. I wouldn't say my intentions. It's more like I go with the flow. What are my intentions there? Okay, so this becomes very complicated and it becomes very hard to see, right? That desire for the cookie, that habit for the cookie is your past actions. That's your kama, right? Even if it's not your intention right then and there, because of habit, because of past action, because you've gone for the cookie so many times before, right? You've built up the karma, you've built up the habit, the underlying tendency towards that cookie. And so even if there's a part of your mind that's like, no, I don't need this cookie, the body, another part of your mind's like, yeah, we're going to have this cookie. And you're going to grab the cookie. Right? So it's connected to being able to understand that even like many of the thoughts that arise unbidden, like you didn't like think it per se, it just came into your mind, right? In many ways, you can think of it as not yours. But on the other hand, you actually did feed the fire, you fed the flames for that to arise again, right? Because it arose in the past, right? And you liked that thought and you fed it and you propagated it and it went back and it came around again, right? So even if you don't have what seems to be a direct intention at that time, it is your old habit, your old karma, that is causing that action to happen. All right. So I see John has a question. Let me get through this dependent origination section, and then I'll answer that question, John, because it kind of goes a little bit away from it. But let's stick with this one. Now here comes one of my favorite aspects of the suttas, when the Buddha says straight up, not a valid question. There's a couple of these. So at Savatthi, bhikkhus, with ignorance as condition, volitional formations come to be. With volitional formations as condition, consciousness, ... Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. When he had said this, a certain bhikkhu said to the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, what now is aging and death? And for whom is there aging and death? Not a valid question, the Buddha, the Blessed One replied. Bhikkhu, whether one says, what now is aging and death, and for whom is there aging and death, or whether one says aging and death is one thing, the one for whom aging and death is another, both these assertions are identical in meaning. They differ only in the phrasing. If there is a view, the soul and the body are the same, there is no living of the holy life. And as if there is the view, the soul is one thing and the body is another, there is no living of the holy life. Without veering towards either of these extremes, the Tathagata teaches the Dhamma in the middle. This was a great point that I remember. I totally forgot about this, right? The Buddha says dependent origination is the middle way, right? The Tathagata teaches the Dhamma by the middle. When birth as condition, aging and death, such as so, right? So, Venerable Sir, what now is birth, and for whom is there birth? Not a valid question, the Blessed One replied. Bhikkhu, whether one says what now is birth, or for whom is there birth, or whether one says birth is one thing, the one for whom there is birth is another, both these assertions are identical in meaning. They differ only in phrasing. Without veering towards either of these extremes, the Tathagata teaches the Dhamma by the middle, with existence as condition, birth. right? So he's talking about who does this, who does that. No who. When this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. Right? Very important. If you try to go with some kind of a self, Buddha says, no. Invalid question. Dependent origination. All right. Venerable Sir, what now is existence? And for whom is there existence? Bhava. Right? Not a valid question, the Blessed One replied. Bhikkhu, whether one says what now is existence, or for whom is there this existence, or whether one says existence is one thing, and the one for whom there is existence is another, both these assertions are identical in meaning. They differ only in the phrasing. Without veering towards either of these extremes, the Tathagata teaches the Dhamma by the middle, with clinging as condition, existence, with craving as condition, clinging, with feeling as condition, craving, with context as condition, feeling, with the six sense bases as condition, contact, with name and form as condition, the six sense bases, with consciousness as condition, name and form, with volitional formations as condition, consciousness. Venerable Sir, what now are volitional formations? Sankharas, choices, right? And for whom are there these volitional formations? I think we have the idea by now, right? Not a valid question, the Blessed One replied. Bhikkhu, whether one says, what now are volitional formations, and for whom are there volitional formations, or whether one says volitional formations are one thing, the one for whom there are volitional formations is another. Both these assertions are identical in meaning. They differ only in the phrasing. If there is the view, the soul and the body are the same, there is no living the holy life. If there is the view, the soul is one thing and the body in the other, there is no living the holy life. Without veering towards either of these extremes, the Tathagata teaches the Dhamma by the middle, with ignorance as condition, volitional formations. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance, whatever kinds of contortions, maneuvers, and vacillations there may be, right? This is Buddhist contortions, maneuvers, and vacillations is, for whom is there this? And for that, like all these kind of, he's talking about these like verbal things, right? That's what he's saying. Whatever may be here, what now is aging and death? And for whom is there aging and death? Aging and death is one thing, and such as, right? All these are abandoned, right? All of these things, all of these invalid questions are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, obliterated, so that there are no more subject to future arising. With the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance, whatever kinds of contortions, maneuvers, and vacillations there may be, what now is birth, and for whom is there birth? What now is volitional formations, and for whom is there volitional formations? Or volitional formations are one thing, and though one who experiences is another. The soul and the body are the same. The soul and the one is one thing, the body is another. All these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, obliterated, so that there is no more future arising. So is there anybody who actually would like me or needs to have me do a basic run through of the 12 steps of dependent origination? I kind of assume that most people here probably already knew it, at least to a certain level. But if there is somebody who's brand new, doesn't really know much about dependent origination at all, I can go through it. Douse, yeah, when you ask the Buddha a question and he says invalid question, you take some meaning from that. Right? Okay. Yeah, this is a waste of a question. Right? It's because the Buddha is always pointing us away from what is not conducive to the ending of our suffering. right? And the Buddha is saying, if you think the soul is one thing, the body is the other, soul and body are the same, etc. He says you cannot live the holy life this way, right? There's no living of the holy life, going through all these silly vacillations and such like that, right? Yeah, the Buddha has a lot of patience. Adriana says, 4 times though. All right. Well, I don't see anybody's making a comment like, hey, Bante, please go over the basics of dependent origination. So how about we go to John's question? Is this the same question from before? I feel like I answered this question. Maybe you're still dealing with it, or maybe it was somebody else. I don't remember. Hey, how do I best deal with feelings of aversion to other people acting unwisely? I'm trying to set aside metta for them, and they're all too human bad decisions. It was someone else that asked the question? All right. Well, okay. So the Buddha gives a 5-step a 5-step way of removing anger and aversion towards a person. All right. It's in the Anguttara Nikaya. I think it's 5.56. Maybe it was 556. I don't remember. But so he gives a list of things to try, and the first one is metta, right? So that's good. You're setting aside metta for them. That's good. The other is compassion, right? Trying to understand their perspective, understand their actions through that person's perspective. Yeah, excuse me. The third is equanimity, right? Trying to reach an equanimous mind towards the person, right? Where you're not really hating them and you're not liking them. If you can't like a person, at least try not to hate them. Have some equanimous mind state for that. Right? And then there's avoiding them if you can. Don't be around them, avoid them, so that you're not a victim of their bad decisions, right? And then the 5th one is to reflect that they're the owner of their karma, right? That they are harming themselves, they're harming others. This is not good for their long-term benefit, right? And with all these reflections, you can see if there's something that you can do with metta. Maybe you can, if you feel like you want to talk to them, that's something you might be able to do, but you have to do it with wisdom, at the right time, preferably if you can see if they're in a good state of mood, with lots of wisdom, with lots of understanding. But otherwise, you're not really. One of the things that is a hard one for most people to do is to realize when they have no control over something. Right? That's a hard thing to accept. It's a hard thing to want to understand, right? But you don't have control over the actions of other people. And if you are suffering in your mind because of the actions of another person, well, then that's your ability to make a decision right there. That is where you can act, right? You're like, why am I letting myself suffer because of this other person's actions? especially if they're not really doing anything directly to you. They're just being, unskillful in general. Why am I doing this? Right? Why don't I, if there's nothing I can do about it, right? Why don't I just let it go? Let it be. Right? That's a tough one. A lot of people don't want to try that, don't want to hear that. But the important thing is to reflect on what you can do within your own mind and with your own sphere of influence. Right? You can't control the minds of others and force people to be a certain way. They are who they are. John says, I'm going through all of those or digital versions of these. Sometimes my aversion is squashed to mild disappointment. Well, see, this is the other thing, is to have, this is what I mean. This is what it's meant by compassion. It's like, you just reflect on, like, you're not perfect and neither is anybody else, right? If you have that mind that's coming up like, oh, I can't believe this person, da, 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 like this kind of like judgment mind, what I like to do with that is kind of counteract that. It's the question that is like, well, who are you? Who are you, Mr. Perfect? Right? It's like to point out that you also make mistakes, and you also, maybe you don't have the right perception or perspective on certain things, right? So you reflect on that, and that actually kind of allows you to give that person a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt, right? It allows you to, and that also helps with the acceptance, right? It also is one of those things where that helps you to lessen your own suffering. When you question yourself, when you call out yourself, it's like, oh yeah, okay. Why was I so uptight about this? Let me let go of it in my mind, right? So I can have some peace. All right, just checking the chat. You're welcome, John. People are agreeing. That's very good. Things are a little quiet tonight, and that's good. I'm not worried about that. I'm kind of quiet in my mind too. Very quiet, calm, a little tired. It was a busy weekend. A millionaire, I love that question. I feel frustrated that I never know what to ask you. What should I do? Don't worry about it. If you don't have any questions, then that's good. Right? So in the beginning, you kind of don't know what you don't know, right? And so you're just learning, you're just absorbing. You're like a sponge, right? You're just kind of absorbing it all in, listening to people talk, listening to watching videos, reading, whatever. You're just absorbing it, right? And once you absorb it, that's when your mind starts to kind of play little Tetris puzzle pieces, Jenga pieces, putting things together, making connections, and then questions arise. And then you have questions, right? And then once you reach a certain point in your practice, you don't have any questions anymore, or very rarely. Like, I haven't had any major questions for a monastic other than like monastic rule kind of stuff, like living like a monastic. But I haven't had any like major Dhamma questions for a monastic in, I don't know, 6-7 years, something like that. Right? Because at that point, I knew the suttas were my guide. I've been practicing for a while already, for years already. It was just moving forward, right? So like most all of my questions. So this is what I've said, Adriana, people who've heard me enough, you know what I say all the time. Practice is the answer. What's the question? That practice is the answer to every question related to Dhamma. I mean, obviously you can go a little bit deeper. I mean, a little bit more specific, but in all reality, practice is the answer. Because through the practice and the wisdom you gain, your questions are already answered. The answers come to you. You didn't need to, have somebody else tell you exactly what you needed to do. Right? Because of your observation, because of your mindfulness, because of your wisdom, you saw it for yourself. Now, you never feel like you have to ask a question. Silence is just as fine as questions. Bante says, any reflections? That's a good question, Bante. Any reflections on the round of mindfulness talks you gave, which none of us will ever hear? Well, actually, hi, Aya. Aya Sudama is with us. Wow, we have a bunch of monastics on today. Very good. So, I actually in the Discord I put the some of my PowerPoint talks up for people who wanted to see it. What I did, but yeah, these are. So it was quite interesting, I really enjoyed, to be honest with you. It made me work a lot. I mean, I probably spent 15 hours at least preparing for those talks, which was in the beginning when I first started. So we're talking about like almost 6 years ago, when Bhante Ji first threw me to the wolves and started making me do talks at Bhavana. Like, I really had to I spent hours on each talk. Right. And in the beginning, they were like these detailed things and I had to refer to them. And then they just became mind maps. And then they just became part of my mind. Like, I can just give the talk. Right. And so I had not had to do that process for years. And doing that process again, even though I was kind of grumpy about, oh God, I got all these hours to, I guess I was being a little bit, in the last year, not having to do any teachings that much and do all that stuff. I got a little bit too enjoying of not doing much, but it was good. It was good to get back to this. And it was also, one of the reflections also was that a lot of these CEOs actually had some knowledge. They weren't a bunch of them kind of knew a little bit about meditation and mindfulness, and they had good questions. It was good. And I got to practice with PowerPoint, something I hadn't had to do in many, many years. So yeah, it was a very good thing. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I got back into it. The one thing though, actually yesterday, because the last talk where I talked about mindfulness in daily life, like how to bring your mindfulness, which is that's my forte. Like those are my best talks, without a doubt. Like maybe also metta in mindfulness of death, but like mindfulness in daily life is where I'm on fire. It is just it's my thing because that's my practice. It's and I was like jokes and like because and some of the same jokes I had already done in the past in front of people, and it's like you're a comedian, you get the feedback, right? Or even like you can if you're giving a talk and people are starting to fall asleep, then maybe it's time to do something. Maybe, right? You get the feedback from the people, right? But when I was looking at a screen talking and I was the only person I saw, right? And I was kind of like, I don't even know if they laughed. I don't know what they think about it, right? So it was kind of weird in that regard. It was almost like I was doing a recording. But it was good. I'm glad I did it. And now I have my first ever online retreat in 2 weeks. Yeah, about 2 weeks with Southern Dhamma. So I'm starting to get busy again. Part of me is not too happy about it. Part of me is. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Oh, quiet in the chat. Well, why don't we do this? Yeah, well, actually, maybe we'll wait a little bit. Because maybe about 9 o'clock-ish, we'll do a guided meditation. And then after the guided meditation, we'll see how everybody is. And if it's quiet and nothing's going on, we can end early. But let's do this analysis of dependent origination. No, Elaine, I don't want to tell you more about the retreat. Mostly because it costs a lot of money. Not my doing. It's the organization that invited me to do the retreat. So I'm not really advertising it, as it were. I'm doing a retreat with Southern Dharma, which is I don't know if you call it quasi. It's one of those kind of like quasi secular, not so secular Buddhist kind of places. They have monks come there. Yeah. It's, I mean, if you really wanted to, I mean, honestly, it's like $150, and I can't. I mean, if it was $20, I might advertise it like, hey, it's only $20, but $150, I can't, in good conscience, say like, yeah, come to my retreat, pay $150. It's a bit too much. Maybe that's a good topic that we can talk about for a couple of minutes. Money and Dhamma and Dana. What are your experiences with like paying to go to retreats, paying for talks, anything like that? Does anybody have experiences? Maybe you go to places like Spirit Rock and Barry, whatever, up in Massachusetts that Bante is familiar with. See, that kind of whole aspect of Buddhism / meditation, I was never a part of, because I went straight to the monks. Like I didn't I didn't even know about these Vipassana centers. This is this. I had studied all the different religions. I liked my Buddhist monks. Buddhism, I was like, Buddhist monks are cool. You know, like all the Buddhist monks I saw in popular culture and the Dalai Lama, they're all happy, smiling. It was like, oh yeah, Buddhist monks are cool. So when I became a Buddhist, it was like right to the monks. So I never like paid for retreats, paid for talks, paid for any of that. That wasn't my thing. What's the question, Adriana? Dow says $40 per noble truth. Oh boy. Ay, $40 per noble truth. Adriana, are you typing your question? Sierra says the question, is it better to give Dana anonymously? If you can, yes. Be like what I call a generosity ninja. Right? There's this like I came up with this term because I have this thing where I like to sneak. I like practice sneaking around, having people not hear me since childhood. Mostly it was I became a good sneaker because I was sneaking food when I was a kid. So I have this like idea. And so one day I was like, I had this idea to do something really good for a person and then they not know at all. And I did it. Right. And I was like, oh yeah, I was like a ninja. A generosity ninja, right? So giving without anybody knowing about it, that's the ultimate, right? Because then there's no chance of any kind of, fame or gratitude or, oh, you're such a good person. Da, 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 da. You just gave, right? Not with no expectations and no feeling that you're going to get it back at all. Oh, there's a little ninja emoji. You're very good. Yeah, generosity ninja. And so every time I've had the ability to do something good and nobody know about it, I did it. Because the Buddha actually says that there is this, it almost sounds corny because you hear it in modern times, people have said this kind of thing, but the Buddha says that if one does an evil deed, they cannot hide it, right? Even if it was done by themselves in the woods, they are the ones who see. They are the ones who are witness to that evil deed, right? So if you've done something bad, right? And you also know if you've done something good, right? And nobody else necessarily needs to know. Or I mean, obviously you can't always be a generosity ninja, right? You do give directly to people, stuff like that. But if you can, do it without anybody knowing, yeah. But if you do give, anytime you give dana, use it as an object of investigation, right? Watch your mind. Look at the intentions. Because one thing I noticed was that even if I was trying not to have any expectations, my mind still had expectations. Even if I was trying not to be like thanked because of what I did, my mind still kind of wanted to be thanked. Right? So you observe your mind and you see that it's like, oh, all right. I see that. I see you, Mara. I see that part of my mind, right? So you observe, and that actually gives you a bit more control over your intentions and your understanding of your actions, right? Because if you're about to do an action, you can observe in your mind, in your brain, all the different kind of, as Thanissaro Bhikkhu says, the committee of the mind, all the different aspects of your mind, kind of making comments and fighting each other and deciding who's gonna be the one who comes out dominant and things like that. You observe all these things, Adriana says, too broke for paid Dhamma stuff. That's one of the main reasons why I believe Dhamma should always be free. So that there's no paywall, there's no barrier to entry. Because Dhamma's for everybody. Dhamma should always be free. I know that's probably an old school view, but I'm going to stick to that one. I have my principles, and I can be a stubborn idealist. I've let go of a lot of my stubborn ideals, but that one I don't think I'll ever let go of, because it's one of the most important ones. Who's talking about Alan Watts? Let me see here. Brandon says, I went through an Alan Watts phase and brought all the audio tapes. It was nice at the time, but I'm grateful for that because it led me to Buddhism. You know, it's so amazing. Like, because I really kind of was like, Alan Watts, who the heck is this guy? But then I kept meeting person after person after person after person who's like, I became a Buddhist through Alan Watts. Like, oh, okay, well, good for him. You know, I'm glad he brought a lot of people to Buddhism. Very good. I wouldn't say that. I mean, books and tapes and things like that, there's always an expectation that most of that stuff is going to cost some kind of a thing, right? You know, even at Bhavana, we would always give the books away for free, but most people didn't realize that Bhavana Society has to buy their books. And the whole 5 years I was there, and probably for decades before that, the books were a loss. Like, we never got enough book donations back to cover the books that we gave out. But it didn't matter, right? We offered books for free to people. That's the way it went. Elaine said $20 for a 1.5 hour Dhamma talk and got quick. That's a bit steep. I did do a retreat in Charlotte. Actually, that's when I went. When I got to meet Ayasudhamma for the first time in person. I did a weekend retreat, and I think it was like $30. And I thought that wasn't too bad. $30 for a weekend. I mean, they do have to pay for the venue, such and such and such. So it wasn't. I didn't feel too bad about that, because $30 is not that steep. But that was for like a whole weekend, not for like $20 for an hour and a half. That's a bit much. The business mini is like, okay, let's see, time versus that's not a good price. Uh-oh, Adriana. Uh-oh. Today, despite initially restraining myself after being provoked. Good job. Very good. Right? You initially restrained yourself. So that tells me you had some mindfulness. Right? You had some mindfulness. You knew what was happening. You tried to be skillful about it, but you were overwhelmed. Right? I totally spoke and acted out of anger and frustration. Right? That's okay. Right? I would say it's very good that you tried, that you saw what was happening, and you actually tried to implement something more skillful. Now, of course, it was too powerful, right? It overwhelmed you. That's going to happen, right? So learn from it, right? What was different this time, right? Were you able to observe kind of where you lost control, right? Where were the forces of Mara? At what point did the forces of Mara overrun you, and your attempts to be skillful were wiped away, right? That's what you want to do, right? Each time this happens, you get a little bit better. You keep investigating, you keep observing, you do like a what do they call it? Like an after action report, right? Or like in the sports, they watch the game they watch what, the game afterwards, right? To see what they did wrong and stuff, right? So you do like this assessment after, how was it when I saw it arose? What were the actions that I attempted to take? How did they work and how did they fail? And then maybe, what can I do better next time? If this happens again, maybe you saw something after, either in the middle of it, or doing the after action report, where you say, "Oh, I think I'm going to try that next time." Right? So good job that you attempted to hold back the wave. Learn from the fact that you didn't. Oh, you said another one here. Eventually, I caught and restrained myself, but for so long, after my mind kept going over and over to regret, despite trying to reflect on how the regret is becoming unskillful and help. Also, very good. Again, observe it, investigate it. The regret. Watch that. Try to investigate, what is the regret arising for? Right? Where is it coming from? This is applying mindfulness to your experiences, understanding them from as many angles, as many aspects as you can, as deeply as you can. Hello, Wu. I don't think I've seen you on the stream before, so welcome. Unless this is somebody that I know somewhere else, like on the Discord, and I've not seen your YouTube before. Good night. Shab is going to bed, or putting the kids to bed, one or the other. Sarah says thanks. I don't know what for. Maybe the generosity thing. Okay. I read in a tennis or a bhikkhu book to be wary of places that put pressure on you, donating to the masters of the place for Dhamma talks, etc. Yeah, Tensaro Bhikkhu actually probably goes above and beyond in making sure that there's not even a hint of like donate to us. Like he goes way more than most places, maybe even a little bit more than I would. But actually, I appreciate that. I do like how strict he is on making it 100% clear, like that you have to know and you have to want to donate to him. How does one support me? So if you go to my website and up top it says support Bhante J, it has all the information there. You can go to there. That might not be a bad topic for one day to talk about, like the specifics of giving to monks and what is appropriate and what is not. Like, don't give us an envelope that has money in it. These kind of things, right? That's a very good thing for lay people to know, especially people who are kind of new to Buddhism that don't really know what's appropriate. Namaste, Ophelia. Oh, hello. Welcome. Another name I'm not familiar with. Sierra says, I've seen crazy prices for Dhamma teachings. Well, yeah, I mean, I've heard of places where, you spend like $1,000 or even $2,000 for a week. But they have maids and stuff too. So I was that, again, the businessman in me is like, I did. Most of you know I like had a photography business and entrepreneur stuff, so I know I do have a business side. And the businessman in me is like, if I'm spending $1,000, you better have maids, right? I better have whatever catered food and such if I'm spending that much money. Whereas you go to Bhavana, right? Like the food is basic. The cabins are slightly falling apart, right? But the teaching is wonderful, and you're in such a wonderful place that you just love it, right? And no, very few people. I mean, I've read probably 1,000 or 2,000 retreat evaluations. Very few of those people ever complained about the conditions at Bhavana, right? Because of the experience, because of the top-notch teaching, because of it being free and available and so welcoming and opening to all people, right? Not Buddhists, Westerners, everybody, right? So people loved it, and that's how it should be. Ah, woo, you're on the Discord server with us. Very good. After action report. You can tell I'm way behind on the chat because of yeah. AAR is definitely a military thing. Adriana, you can keep asking it. It's okay. He said that if you want to repay him, you should put the teachings into practice. Yes, this is how it should be, right? This is what the Buddha says, right? Let me see how. It's been a while. I used to have it hanging on my wall at Bhavana, but I haven't had much of a wall to hang it on in the year. So it says something like, basically, the Buddha says that the one who respects and pays homage to me most is the one who practices, right? The one who follows the Noble Eightfold Path, who practices the Dhamma well. That is the person who is paying the most respects to me. Oh, well, is it Wu-Ten? Maybe you're right, Adriana. I'm not sure. Well, I have also kind of a businessman outlook for monasteries and Dhamma centers as well, right? The first one is location, right? You got to know location. You got to know that there's going to be a base of support that you can draw from, etc., and all that. The second one is supply and demand. If people like it, if they think it's worthy enough, if they value it enough, they will keep it alive. If not enough people do it, then it doesn't. Then it dies. It's just the way it is. That's how business is, or at least that's how it should be, right? If there's enough customers, the customers love the business. It stays alive and it thrives and it grows, right? If not, then it goes away. And Bhante G said something to that effect as well years ago, like from the 90s. I read this. He wrote an article about starting up a Dhamma place. And that's basically what he said. He says, if you have wisely chosen, from the variables and didn't just do it off, went through in a wise way, the next step is, if the people like it, they'll keep it alive. If not, it won't, right? And so because of that fear of this might die, right? They charge instead. I kind of get it. I understand where they're coming from. I just don't agree with it. And I would never, I would rather start something, and if it dies, it dies. And I just start another place. Go somewhere else. Do something else, right? Ophelia, very good. I'm glad you were able to make it with us today. Hello, Ellie. The croaking frogs in the pond. Yes. John, that's a great one. How does one conduct market research for Dhamma? When I was a foster and adopter home recruiter, the state would give me maps of like the county, and like I would actually like use these maps. They were different color coded, and I would use these maps to decide where I would put my my efforts into trying to make events or speak with local businesses and stuff like that. So, well, it's this is one of the reasons. There's multiple reasons why I think Colorado would be a great place for me to start a place, because it's centrally located, because it has, you have cities and wilderness close together, right? Because there's a good amount of people. There's already some Dhamma there, but there's not much Theravada, and there's very little early Buddhist text. There's very little Suttavada, right? So I can find a niche there. Now I have to go there. I have to see, I have multiple contacts there, people who, in different places. So once I go there and I visit, and I have to scope out the lands, see there. And then I start. Oh, hello, Ellie. Oh, see, another person in Colorado. There you go. Um, so yeah, so my intuition, my business sense, my Dhamma sense all points me to Colorado. And I've been meeting a lot of different people from Colorado and people who lived in Colorado. I've been making so many connections. I think that's where it's going to go. But maybe Colorado doesn't work out. I have to find another place. I'll start another place somewhere else. I don't suspect that Colorado is going to be the place. So my ideal is to have a setup like Ayasudama within 5 or 6 years in Colorado. We'll see what happens. Yeah, Amy's there as well. Yeah. I have to be by mountains. Mountains are the place. I want to die in the mountains. I was born at the shore, but I want to die in the mountains. Yeah, exactly. So that's my market research, John. You know, I have to kind of get there, and what seems to happen is most places start close to a city, right? And then they kind of go out and they have like a monastery or a hermitage or whatever. They get a base of support, right? If you just I'm going to go to Colorado and I'm just going to find a random nowhere place and start building a monastery. Who's going to come? Who's going to know? Right? Nobody's going to know what is going on. Is this a cult? What? Right? But if you start out close to population centers, people know you, people get to know you, you get maybe in the newspapers, such and such and such and such, and then you spread out. Well, I always dress like this, so I don't have to worry about how I dress. That's the great thing about being a monk. You have one set of clothes. Hey, Chris. Okay, people talking about snow in the spring. That's right up my alley. I love winter. I love snow. I don't care when it comes. All right. So I'm not seeing anything. We've kind of gone a little bit off Dhamma. Kind of on it, not too far off, but talking about Dana and places and things like that. But oh wait, I saw very briefly a internet connection thing. Oh, that's right. I forgot, sister, that you're in Colorado as well. That's right. See, there are people in Colorado that can give me the scoop, that can tell me what's up. All right. Chris wants to talk about impermanence of seasons. Well, that depends on where you live, doesn't it? I hear in California it's pretty much 70 all the time. There's one season. Well, I guess it also depends on where in California, too. All right, I think it's time to do our guided meditation. Then we'll have about 6 or 7 minutes at the end. Yeah, pretty hot at Metaforest. Yep, that's gonna be a fun one when I go there. I'm gonna hopefully go to Wat Metta, maybe in November though. Hopefully not. Hopefully it won't be that hot. Probably a Bayagiri in November too. After I spend the Vasa with Ayati in California. Hey John, have you ever tried the World Buddhist Directory on buddhanet.net? You never know what you might find. I have heard of places in Alabama. And now, obviously, there's not that many probably, and you probably will have to drive. I mean, I had to drive 5 hours in 4 states to find Bhavana. So it happens. And I was in New Jersey. That is another topic, actually. That is another topic. People in America and places that don't have a lot of Buddhism, even like Indonesia, all the Indonesian people I came in contact with, right? Where there's not that much Buddhism, you know, sometimes, especially if you are a specific tradition like Theravada, like Aya is saying, sometimes at Mahayana places there's Theravadins kind of. Yes, unfortunately, the UUs are all politics all the time now. I started noticing that the last couple of years as I was traveling. Many of the places I went to were at UU places. So they do, depending on organizations, they do bring monks there, but they're definitely fairly politics and activists these days. But there are sometimes they bring Buddhist monks to, or teachers for weekends and things like that. So who knows? But I think we should do our guided meditation because we're coming close to 9:30. It's a good time to do it. Instead of now people are going to bed. I said meditation, not sleep. Good night, Elaine. All right. Set your body up in a stable and comfortable position. Whatever position works for you. Take some time to scan through your body, starting from your feet all the way up to your head. When you go through a body part, like the feet, we want to bring our awareness to whatever sensations arise that we can connect our attention with, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, etc. We want to be observant of whatever sensations are arising from whatever part of the body we're investigating and scanning, so that we can see if the body is, the posture is not in balance, or if there's little feelings of pain that might turn into larger feelings of pain later. So as you scan through the body, observing the parts, adjust your posture as needed. When you reach your pelvis and hips, check to make sure that your lower body is a stable position for your posture, that the position of the hips, the position of the pelvis allows the upper body to be straight, resting on top, not causing it to lean or slouch. Developing good posture and checking your posture before moving to the breath will allow you to sit longer with less pain and discomfort. So it's always good to scan through the body and adjust yourself to minimize imbalances and pain. If you've moved to the upper body, check that your spine is not stretched out, not leaning and slouching, but in its natural position, resting comfortably on the pelvis, the lower body, a strong foundation. When you're done setting up your body in a stable and comfortable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. Then let the breath go. From here on in, we do not wish to manipulate or control the breath in any way. This body has been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, abide with this body as it breathes in and breathes out. Remember to lay down your burdens. Put down your world, all your responsibilities, worries, burdens. Lay them down for now and follow the breath. Whenever you get distracted from your breath, first acknowledge you've become distracted. Practice letting go of the distraction by not getting agitated and pushing it away, or getting wrapped up in it and enjoying it. Let it do its own thing as you return to the breath. Acknowledge, let go, and return over and over. Now we're going to switch gears, practice some more Satipatthana style investigation of experience. Instead of focusing on the breath, bring your awareness out to encompass all of this mind and body, whatever you're experiencing right now. Wait for something to become prominent in your awareness, like an itch or a pain, something external like a sound. Whatever becomes very prominent and takes up your attention. This may change from minute to minute, but just observe whatever most prominent arises in your field of awareness, your field of experience. Take that as your object of investigation. Observe it deeply. Dive into it. And when you do, observe how it arises or impacts the body. For example, like an itch or a pain. What are the sensations like? What does it feel like when the body itches? What does pain feel like in the body? Investigate that experience. Maybe it's a sound that arises, a distracting, jarring sound. What is that experience of hearing? And while you're doing that, check in with your mind. What is the general tone of the mind while experiencing an itch or a pain or a distracting, jarring sound? What are the thoughts that arise? Narratives about that pain or that itch, what you should or shouldn't do, your dislike or like. Observe those thoughts. Observe your impulses, strong desires to scratch the itch, adjust your posture to alleviate the pain. Impulses arise. Distinguish impulses from intention. The impulse to do something in your mind arises. Then your intention is to follow that impulse or not. Impulses are not intention. So sit in your practice, being aware and mindful to whatever arises most prominent, and observe it through these factors: feeling in the body, the tone or general state of your mind, the thoughts that arise in your mind, and impulses that arise. Feelings, mind states, thoughts, and impulses. Investigate whatever is arising in your experience through this framework. Investigate this mind and body. Know it deeply. Whatever experience arises is an opportunity for investigation and the development of wisdom. Slowly start to open your eyes. Come back to awareness of the room around you. The computer and the live stream. Awareness to our Dhamma friends in the chat. I like how Chris said, this is good Dhamma friends action. Don't sleep yet, friends. Strive forward with diligence. That's great. No, the question is, Elaine said, okay, I'm up. Is she still up? Is she still with us? That's the question. Yeah. And even if she's not, that's okay. But that is one of the great things about having good Dhamma friends, right? You can go further sometimes when you have good teammates, good Dhamma friends who encourage you to go further, because let's go further together, right? You can go further than you could even by yourself. Why? Because you can lose to your defilements, but your friends can be like, no, let's go. And then your defilement, then you kind of like, oh, well, I don't know if I want to do it. Oh, okay, let's do it. Right? So it's very good, Chris. I really like that. Come on, friends, strive forward with diligence. Hey, Elaine's here. All right. Well, Elaine, if you really needed to go to bed or really do something important, it's okay if you had to leave. But if you were, if it was a good thing that you were able to stay and practice, then it's good. Yeah, Adriana, that's my basic, what I call my, well, initially I called it the Vipassana itch. That was the first term for it. But now I call it FMTI. That's my, what I call the Bhante J's, what did I call it when I taught this for the CEOs? Bhante J's, let me see. I'm just going to look at it real quick. Hold on. There it is. Oh, wait. What? No, that's wrong. Simplified Satipatthana for beginners and secular practitioners. That's what I called it. Simplified Satipatthana for beginners and secular practitioners. All right, Elaine. Have a good night. We're done anyway. John made a comment? Where? Oh, there. Okay. Yeah, Central Time. Well, once I move to Colorado, if that happens, then it's going to be in is either Central or Mountain, one of the two. All right, friends. Millionaire. Well, this sometimes our practices. The millionaire says my meditation was strange. My left side was perfectly relaxed, but my right side, particularly the neck, shoulder, and arm, was simply refused to relax. Yeah, that happens sometimes. All kinds of weird stuff happens in our meditation, especially when we start to actually pay attention to what's going on. We see all kinds of weird stuff. All right. So let's do our sharing of merits and then we'll end. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, baya patta chane baya, soka patta chane soka, huntu sabbe pipaniyo. Ettavata cha mehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya akasatta chabumata deva naga mahiddika punyang tang anumoditva charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share in this merit that we've thus acquired. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, friends, good night. If you'd like to, you can join me every morning at 8:30 Eastern. You can join me with some views of the mountains, some sounds of the birds, maybe some views of the dogs and cats getting in front of the camera, and some morning monastery experience every morning, 8:30 Eastern, Monday through Friday. So you can join me for a live stream, same channel, same live stream in the morning. If you'd like to have a half hour of chanting and a little bit of a Dhamma talk. Otherwise, I'll see you either on the Discord or I'll see you on the next live stream. So, friends, I wish you a very spiritually successful and peaceful week. Practice well and be well. Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy. Very good. There's the email. I checked the chat and I said, okay, I'm going to wait just to end it before. Yeah. All right. Good night.